Welcome back to Sobremesa Chats. My name is Hilda McClure. I'm the COO of Connecta Center and an LPC up in Dallas, and I'm joined by my ever lovely co-host, Elizabeth Palafox. Elizabeth, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. My name is Elizabeth Palafox. I am the lead clinician with Canenta here in San Antonio, and I'm excited to talk about today's topic on um, spring cleaning for the brain.
Yes, I love it. I'm so excited. I was just walking my dog right before we recorded, and like the bugs are out, which I'm not super excited about, but like the wildflowers are out. Like we are definitely moving into spring, at least up here in North Texas. And so this is like the
Mhm.
perfect topic for that.
Yeah, things are in bloom.
Yes, for
Mhm.
sure. For sure. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, at this time, they start spring cleaning, getting ready for the summer. And as Elizabeth and I started planning for this, Elizabeth was like, "What about if we talked about spring cleaning for the brain, for our lives?" And so, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about what that looks like and what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so we've talked about, or most of us think about, like January is that time for like goal setting, manifesting, vision boards, right? What do we want the year to look like? But I don't know about everyone out there, but I know for me, it does get hard to sustain that sometimes. And then I'll get maybe distracted or derailed. Like come February, it's like some things may regress or some things I forget about. And so it being kind of transitioning from winter to spring, can we check in with those initial intentions for the year based off of what values we wanted to carry with us this year? How aligned are we with that? So it's kind of just a check in and anything that we might identify right now as maybe I don't need this for the rest of the year, the rest of the 9 months. Can I set this to the side or can I put this somewhere else or can I let go of this? So it really was just that idea of, yeah, let's spring clean, let's reorganize and realign, really.
Yeah. And I love that so much that you kind of talked about the beginning of the year. I think we mentioned this in one of our older podcasts, right? That like this new year starts with like so much like pep, and a lot of times people start falling off whatever their goals are about this time of year. And this is a great way to kind of like get back on the bike, and really put your energy in the right places versus kind of the beginning of the year where we're going to do 15 new things, new year, new me. This really is like, okay, I do want a new me. And so, how do I make this sustainable past the first quarter of the
Hmm.
year?
Hmm. Yeah.
And you notice you mentioned values, and I love values so much, and I think there's so much power in us being able to identify our values and then live according to them. And I think like kind of to your point, when we're leaving that the goals of the beginning of the year and we actually move more into values, then we can build some more like sustainable practices.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, with values, I think we had talked about it in like the preparation of goals are where we're working towards, and the values are like who we are as we're working towards those goals. And I find this to be a theme in some of my sessions where people notice the change is happening in the process of like moving towards a goal, where maybe they're not at their maybe like ideal job or their ideal relationship, right? Those things are works in progress, but it's in the intention of how that process is happening is where they feel different. Like, oh, I feel more clear about this, or I feel more confident about this. There are things that feel like themselves in that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember what modality does it. It might be like ACT ACT, I
Okay.
think. Um, but there's a reflection question that comes up where it's like, where do you feel the most like yourself?
Hmm.
What are you doing? What does that look like to help us identify values? And that feeling can be like such a powerful motivator of
Hmm.
like, I am my truest form of self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's like when we, okay, again, using this as a reflection or a
Mhm.
checkpoint
Mhm.
of can we reflect on what the patterns of where do things show up for me? Is it a specific environment where I'm noticing each time I'm there, I feel tired right after? Or maybe after work, right? If there's a pattern of how I'm spending that time, but I'm feeling maybe it's comfortable, but then I'm still drained, you know?
Mhm.
We begin to identify these are patterns telling you this is not, this is not aligned with who you are. It's not aligned with who you want to be.
Yeah.
So paying attention to those patterns can be really insightful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of us don't realize how much our bodies are actually giving us communicating, and our feelings too, right? Are communicating to us about something being a little bit off or being right in the like being right in the center of where we need to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And things can also become so normal, so
Mhm.
routine that they they really right we really do have these blinders or these blind spots until sometimes I've, utilized tools like logs, right? A
Mhm.
log, whether it's a um like a habit tracking log or maybe a food log or a study log, right? And you can identify what days and what situations and what moods and what outcomes, right? It really helps give you like a snapshot of in the last 2 weeks, this was what was coming up, how, where, and why. And again, can be really insightful.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many great apps that help log that kind of stuff. Like I think even on my iPhone, under the health app, I can log a bunch of stuff on there
Hmm. Hmm.
to make it easier. But data is such a helpful, um, like hard data, right? Can be such a helpful thing to help us identify patterns. And even I just had this come up this week with a client. Just having hard data even helps us with diagnoses.
Hmm.
I think about, for example, PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is a little bit of a step up from PMS. If you're
Hmm.
not logging the data or tracking, it can feel like there's just like a couple of days out of the month that I'm just not feeling good, and you don't necessarily connect the two.
Yeah.
So data can be really helpful, even from a clinical standpoint, around just the noticing.
Hmm. Or notice how much it actually is interrupting
Yeah.
your life. And I think about, so talking about apps, there's the Freedom app, which helps limit social media use. It gives kind of a timer of, this time and this time, no, no socials. And then it also generates reports of this is how much time you've been on it in the first place. This is how much phone time you've been having. And it can like for me personally, I've had to install it because there are times where you're just like, oh, I'm maybe just like waiting in the doctor's office or oh I'm just waiting for an appointment or I think it becomes the simplified or justified. And when you again have that right in front of you, it's like, oh, like that is taking up a good amount of my time.
Mm,
And it can reveal, this actually is something you can look at more attentively too.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It also, I think that kind of talking about our phones for a second, I think that our phones do a lot of numbing
Hmm. Hmm.
and we use it to numb a lot. And so we like it, I think it can skew
Yeah.
not necessarily our pattern, but it skew our perception of our patterns.
Hmm.
Right. So I go into a social situation and instead of sitting with the uncomfortableness, I get on my phone.
Mm,
So, we go, well, I was there. Yeah, I go out with my friends. And because we're not necessarily, right, like our perception of that time is different because we're so absorbed in whatever we're doing on our phone.
yeah. Yeah.
Same thing with like boredom, same thing with overwhelm, right? That we are using it as like a band-aid. And so it's skewing our perception of our own emotions and not allowing ourselves to feel whatever uncomfortableness might be under there. And not all uncomfortableness is the same.
Hmm. And I can see that connecting so easily to, again, like let's say on your beginning of the year, your goal was to socialize more, right? Or to make more connections. And there is that, right? Like, but then what do I do when discomfort comes up? Or um like I'm showing up, but am I really showing up? Right? There is
Mhm.
that disconnect right there.
Mhm.
Um But if you, again, take a step back and ask yourself, how can I be just a little bit more aligned with the original intent or value? And then like
Absolutely.
redirecting,
Yeah.
recalibrating.
Recalibrating, rebuffering. Um, yes, I love that. I also like another thing I like about like identifying our values and doing some reflection around that. It's that I find that it helps us build self-confidence and self-esteem because when we're constantly recalibrating or rebuffering to our value system, then we're actually showing up as who we want to be.
Hmm.
And that is a really powerful feeling.
Hmm.
I think about like the professional athletes. Did you see that interviewer um with the woman from um I think she's from California, but she plays for the Chinese Olympics and she's the
Yes.
freestyle. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So if you haven't seen, I have to look up the name. I'll have to get it back to you. But they asked her, she won two silvers, I think.
Oh, I know what you're talking.
You
Yes.
talk, yeah, and
Uh-huh.
the interview asked her,
Hmm.
is that two silvers gained or two golds lost?
Oh,
Terrible question. And she names that.
terrible.
She says that's a ridiculous question because I know like how hard I am. She is like the most decorated freestyle. I think she's a skier. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Um
She
and like
laughed. She like honestly laughed at
laughs.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think and so then she talks about like she knows how hard it works.
Hmm.
She works
Hmm.
for it. And so and I think about how, right, like I think for her, right, she's living in alignment with her values. Whether she wins or lose, it has a lot to do with like she knows how hard she's worked and no one can really take that from her.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
whether she has a medal or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um And so I love that. And so I think that's the same thing here, right? That when we are living in accordance to our values, no one can really take that from you, um,
Yeah.
especially if you're showing up consistently.
Hmm. Hmm. And when you, I, I have conversations sometimes with people who don't know what their values are, not because things don't matter to them, but because they maybe haven't had opportunities to uh, like connect or have experiences where they had a moment like that of this feels right, this feels like me. And that could be for a variety of reasons. There's lots of responsibilities and your time maybe doesn't feel like your time. Maybe it feels like frivolous or it feels like, I don't have time to think about that. I just show up and do what I'm supposed to do. But even that is a value, right? Which is hard work, or it may be responsibility, and those are values. But I think even asking, well, what inspires me, or if I hear an interview like that, how does that show up for me in my body? Do I feel like, yes, like I've worked hard for something and or she's worked hard for something and she's earned it, and how that shows up in wanting to protect that, right? Of I've worked hard for things too, and I've earned, you know, things I have or places I've gotten to be. So um, we all do have values. Sometimes it's just about noticing where do I feel that? When do I feel that?
Mhm.
Um, and we could maybe go into the compass.
Yeah.
So
So go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say there is, so Hilda had mentioned ACT, which stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, which talks about, a lot of it has to do with values, like aligning with your values. And they have a tool, or it has a tool called the Values Compass. And it talks about in different areas of your life, it prompts you to reflect what these areas of your life may look like if your values and your actions were aligned. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Hold on.
No. Do you have it so we can share it?
Yes, yes. So let me pull it up.
Also, while you do that, I'm gonna do a quick plug for our book, Self Care for Chingonas.
Yes.
And the reason I'm going to do this is because in the book we all talk about it's really hard to see, but in the book we all talk about a different self-care practice. And actually, I don't know if you knew this, Elizabeth, but my chapter is about living according to your values.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if you're interested, we have all kinds of different practices, but at the end of my chapter, I also list there's like an exercise about identifying values, and it lists like maybe like 25 values and some discussion questions. You can't really see that. That's me.
Oh.
Um, and so if you're just like kind of wanting like an introduction to self-care, because I do think that value-based living is self-care, because
Mm-hmm.
the right, self-care is about building sustainability in your life.
Right.
And so living according to your values is an
Mm-hmm.
act of
Mm-hmm.
sustainability. So we're going to go through this compass, but if you're like, okay, that's great, I love that, pick up our book, Self Care for
Yeah.
Chingonas. And
Ooh.
Elizabeth has a chapter. Yeah, Elizabeth has a chapter in this, and there's the book club that's happening in San Antonio right now. Um, but my chapter happens to be about living according to your values. So,
Perfect. Perfect. Um, so I pulled it up here, and as I mentioned, there's different areas of our lives where our values can be utilized, right, to get to where we want to be or to fill these roles in the ways that we're hoping. So we don't have to go through all of them, but I'll choose a couple of these and
yeah.
have you all, just think about these questions. There's other areas that are probably not on here, but these again are the general ones.
Mhm.
So I'll start with the top one, because we've done a lot of conversations on family.
Mhm.
So in family dynamics, family relationships, what is your ideal dynamic? What kind of relationships do you want? I'll add in there, how do I want to feel about my family? How do I want others to feel about me? And then what kind of role, again, sister, daughter, and cousin, right? What kind of family member do I want to be? And in those answers, you'll see certain patterns come up, which can, express to you, okay, this may be a value that you have when it comes to family.
Mhm.
Um, should we share like
Yeah.
Ours?
Yeah, let's do it. I was about to say we can model it.
Okay, okay. Um, well, I'll go first. I'll
Okay.
say that for family relationships, um, going in, right, with the understanding not every family is perfect, but I want relationships that feel trusting, that there
Mhm.
is trust both ways, where I can trust other people to have good intentions for me and that they know I have good intentions for them. So trust is just foundational when it comes to family and quality time. I know in past episodes we've talked about like living further from family or not always making time for family. So quality time and presence in relationships would be something I'd want um in family dynamics.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, kind of going on like that trust, I think for me is, and this is not just for family, but just like relationships in general, is integrity. Like
Mm,
that we have a lot of integrity with one another. So that if you say you have my back, you have my back, and vice versa.
mhm,
I think that's a big one for me. And then I think the other one is a lot of curiosity,
mm,
and I don't want to say like not judgmental, but that there's a lot of, so my husband and I practice a lot of making a lot of space for one
mm,
another to show up as we are, and
mhm.
to hold curiosity for one another, especially when he hurts my feelings or I
Right.
hurt his feelings, that we can be like, okay, you can show up with your mess here and we
Mhm,
can work through it together.
mhm.
And we want that even in our family relationships, that we can show up as we are without being criticized. And that if it's something that feels different than what you believe or think, or X, Y, and Z, different than your opinions, that you can be curious enough about
Mhm.
ours, just as we're curious about you.
Yeah, yeah. I like that because there's grace with that, right? You're giving grace, but with curiosity, it's also wanting to go deeper into, okay, I understand maybe we think differently, but being open and wanting to know why do we think differently, um, which can strengthen a lot of relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hard work. It's hard
Yeah.
work across the board. Ooh.
Let
Pick another one. Pick another
We're
one.
gonna let's talk about maybe friendships, social
Mhm.
relationships. So some prompting questions being what sort of friend do I want to be? But also what friends would I like to have? What friendships are important to cultivate? Are there any I've outgrown or that feel different? How would I like to act towards my friends? And yeah, when I think about this, it's it's interesting because people are so different, right? I don't know about you, Hilda, but I know I have different friend groups
Mhm.
where like
Mhm.
maybe for this friend group, it's more like hang out, you know, for this friend, it's long-term friendship, so it's almost like a sibling. Um, so that can also be something to look into is it's not that your values change in your friendships, it may just be um those friendships they don't require different values, but they different values are expected, maybe I'll
Mhm.
say. Um, but in general, I would say I would want to be a friend that is like supportive, that is celebratory of others, that really cheers people on. And I want to be a friend that is considerate. I think with so many transitions, life transitions, it can be easy to take things, personally if,
Mhm.
time doesn't feel the same, communication doesn't feel the same, but to
Mhm.
know consideration is there.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you?
that's so good. I do very similar to you. I do have different friends, different friend groups where different values are maybe prioritized.
Yes, that's the
They're
word.
just like to prioritize differently. And I think that's a very real way of meeting people where they're at, right? Because not all of my friends, for example, like, I mean, I'm sure that you know this because you do trauma work like I do, is that not everyone can hold that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not everyone can hold that.
Hmm.
When I come home and I'm like nonverbal, or if I go to like an outing and like just had a really hard session, right? Like, not all my friends can understand, right? And so that's okay. And so, right, there are friends that can hold more space for that than others. And so I still want to have a good time. And right, like there's friends that are really good at that, right? And so yeah, very similar to you. I think for my friendships, I always want to be really generous. Like, I want to be known as the generous friend in the group. And whether that's like with my time or my resources or
Mhm.
um like with whatever I have. Um I think I've talked about this before, but like I think about like even our home. We have a spare bedroom, and that spare bedroom is for folks that need, you know,
Mhm.
this is not an open invitation for folks.
Everyone go to Hilda's
Everyone's, yeah, like, hey, is that room still available? But right, like just like generous in that kind of way. And like I think Anthony and I have tried to build a life where that can be possible in our
Mhm.
friendships. I also really value in friendship commitment.
Mm.
And so what I mean by that is, some of my most treasured friendships are the friendships that can work through stuff. That, like, even when we hurt each other's feelings or things get hard, that we can sit and have really hard conversations.
Yep.
And I do think that's incredibly rare in this political climate right now. Like, I'm not talking about like government political, but just like social political,
Yeah.
right? Like, just
Yeah.
where it's very easy to leave, and that's preached very often. Actually, that if they're toxic, if they're whatever, then we just cut them off. And
Yeah.
so when I say our, because Anthony and I, but my values is this idea that I'm committed, and I'm going to
Mhm.
be committed, and I'm going to work on things until like either things get better or we decide that this is no longer a good fit.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
basically, what I'm saying is, like, if you're friends with me, like, we're friends for life until
Can't get rid of you.
you can't get rid of me. Like, I mean, if you want to get rid of me, that's fine, but it's not. Yeah, it's not gonna be me necessarily.
Oh. Yeah, loyalty. And I feel like that showed up both like for your family and friends, right?
Mhm.
Loyalty. I think
Yeah,
that's a great value.
yeah.
Let's see. I think we have time for like maybe two more,
Let's see.
three.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I'm gonna go to the left hand.
Okay.
Let's do community, citizenship, community. They're all
Yeah.
great. It's just hard to pick from.
Yeah.
Um, so when you think about how might you align with your values as you show up in your communities, some questions you can think about are, what kinds of environments do I want to be a part of? How do I want to contribute to community? How do I want to feel like I belong to this community?
I can start on this one because you've been
Okay.
starting. I'm going to let you think about it for a minute
Yes.
because I've
Yeah,
had
me
some,
too.
I've had,
Thank
yeah, I've had a little bit of a break. I can start. For this one, there's been, I think since, okay, just to kind of backtrack, I moved here when I was 18 to go to school. I struggled a lot with assimilation and acculturation. I didn't necessarily put a ton of importance in who I was hanging out with in terms of culturally,
you.
right? Because it's kind of, when I first moved here, it's like who I had access to.
Hmm.
And the group of friends I had in college, which I still love and care about and like still talk to, um, they were like culturally different than I was. Totally fine. I think what in the last couple of years there has been a shift for me to be in more Latino communities. Um, and not necessarily that I'm building the same kind of friendships that I did in college, but it just feels really important for me to be in communities that look like me and that speak the language. It's been really like healing for me, and um, so there's that part. The other part is that I feel like what I give, I always want to be an advocate for my community. Um, and give back to that. And so that can look, I think that can look like a lot of different ways. For me, like right now, I'm part of a nonprofit C3, which is a Latino young professionals group, and I help run the She3 section, which is the women's. Right. And so
Okay.
basically, part of that is us putting on, like I call them events, but it's really about creating community and connection. So
Mhm.
once a month, we have some sort of She3 event where we're doing that. So right, like that can be it's one of my like forms of advocacy, just this idea of giving back in that kind of way.
Mm, love
Mhm.
that. For me, I would say, and this again, like showing how this could be helpful to do some spring cleaning is I would say community is still something I'm wanting to invest more in. Um, I would want to be a part of a community of women, like women living with purpose. I went to, so again, background about me. I went to an all-girls school up until so for middle school and high school. And I just remember that feeling of sisterhood, and we all, had very similar goals and values, came from similar backgrounds. We had these big dreams, and it was so cool to just connect with them on these dreams. Then in college, I was part of a lot of like women's small groups, and again, I joined a sorority,
Oh,
and
that's
again, this
awesome.
idea of sisterhood. And once I and in grad school, both men and women, but I still gravitated towards my female friendships. And now I would say that's something I do feel that's I have a gap with is I have my friends, but that sisterhood feeling is not as present. And I've found myself saying like, oh, I'm going to join, I especially now that I've interacted with the Hispanic Women's Network a little bit more in some of the outreach events we've done. I know here in San Antonio, there's so many amazing groups. There's Poderosa Rising, there's Very That, there's I'm just plugging in these groups
Mhm.
for local San Antonians.
Yeah.
There's the Lovers Run Club. There's just so many groups, and I keep saying, I'm going to join, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And because for me, that sisterhood, right, is very edifying, it's very energizing, and makes me feel safe too, makes me feel like I have a place to belong.
Mhm.
And I would love to contribute in some way as well, in that I think in earlier life experiences, we were all in the same boat. Like we had a lot of the same interests or same
Mhm.
like responsibilities or tasks, but to join a group with diverse backgrounds, maybe you have people who do more advocacy work or people who work with like in the medical field, or we have people in the legal field, like just so many backgrounds where we
Mhm.
can support one another, and
Yeah.
that's something that's
Yeah.
something I definitely want to
Yeah.
explore more.
And I think you're like that's such a good example of how like even values can help us make decisions. Right. So like maybe you don't know what to do. Understanding your values like helps clarify and clear that up. Right. So that I assume, right, that that means that you're not going to go necessarily join a co-ed group. Not that there's anything wrong with a co-ed group,
Right.
but part of the value right now is like being in part of like a
Mhm.
sisterhood. Right. So
Mhm.
that's going to help direct that, right, like kind of that decision.
Yeah.
And so the more you can identify your values, the more decisions start to become easy. Or
Hmm.
because if you're in a season where community is like kind of moved up the priority list, because right, your values can change, but I think what's probably more common is that there's like a shift where the priority of the value is, right?
Hmm.
So in some seasons, community might be more important. You know, you're getting married, maybe you have kids in the next couple of years, right? Like that will shift
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
too. Um, and so in a season where you're like want to do 10,000 things, that's great, right? We can't do it all. And so wherever your priorities or your values are, that can help clarify a choice for you.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I'll say even like talking about that, as we were talking about feelings and emotions and where that shows up, like even just talking about it and remembering what that felt like, I felt like it in my chest, right? Of that
Mm,
warmth of like, like comfort, that warmth.
yeah.
And so again, taking this for, everyone's personal reflections when you think about maybe what were times I was living these values or aligned with these values and how your body also reacts to that in a way
Yeah.
of comfort or joy or energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Elizabeth, we've talked through some of them. I don't know that we have time for another one,
Okay.
but I am curious about, so let's say, someone's like really curious about this and they're like, well, I don't know, like, yeah, all this sounds really great. What are some signs like that they can recognize or even signs in their body that something's a little bit off? Like that kind of misalignment with values. What could be possibly some signs for that?
So kind of the opposite of what I was saying, if you are doing something in line with your values that makes you feel energized or even like confident, positive, it's anything that feels draining, where you feel even dread, right? There's
Hmm.
dread. I have to do this. I'm not sure why I feel anxious or dreadful, but I don't feel secure in what I'm doing or confident. There may be more like somatic presentations or physical presentations like um, headaches, muscle tension, stomach aches, um, like lethargy. I think sometimes you can feel numb too.
Yeah.
There's a sense of numbness. Um, People who are close to you may also point out, hey, you don't seem like yourself, or hey, are you does this thing still excite you? Are you still excited about this? Because, and you can ask those around you, those you trust, um, is there anything different about me that you notice?
Mhm.
And get some feedback because again, we may have blinders sometimes, but it can be helpful to receive that feedback from those around us who can see maybe there's something different.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if I'm missing any.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, resentment might be another one.
Resentment. Hmm.
Resentment might be another one. Um, yeah, I think that feeling, I think a lot of us, it's like that, oh, that dread, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Or another like good counterpart or like a little thing you can notice is like, for example, let's say you're like with someone and they become chismosa, right? And they get like it goes a little too far.
Yeah.
And then you get home and you're like, dang, I shouldn't have said that. Like, dang, like, right. Those like,
Remorse.
yeah, remorse. Esa es la palabra, remorse, right? Like you like hang out with people or you do
Mhm.
something and you're like, not necessarily that I did something bad, but I feel a little icky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
ooh, this doesn't feel good.
Hmm.
I think that remorse will come up. I think guilt gets really complicated
Great
for
one.
our community, but guilt can be another one. Okay, well,
Hmm.
we only have a
Hmm.
couple more minutes. So, what are some takeaways that we want to give our folks? This is so good. So many of our topics, I'm just like, how are we supposed to fit this in 30 to 45 minutes?
Maybe we could do a mid-year, midpoint one.
Yeah.
But some takeaways being that if you are misaligned right now, and I gave an example of one of like maybe community, something I can take more take my time to invest in a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's just misalignment, but it's not like a failure of something I've set for myself. It's feedback, right?
Mhm.
Of, okay, what's not working or what's making it hard for me to do that? Or how can I carve out, time to commit to that? Just some check-ins, right? Misalignment is an opportunity to check in. Another takeaway is your body will communicate things to you before you recognize it like yourself. And so incorporating things like body scans, mindfulness, noticing, right? Where do things show up when I'm doing something, when I'm making a decision, when I am by myself, like you said, boredom. Who am I when I'm bored? Who am I when I'm by myself? And so
Mhm.
just noticing how your body feels.
Mhm.
Values are not goals. Values are who we are as we're working towards those goals. Um, and what else?
Yeah. And I would just add to what you said is like it's you start small, right?
Yes,
So maybe you
yes.
answer that compass. I love that compass. You or look through it and you've come away with like 15 things that you either want to change or highlight or whatever. Um, so you pick one.
Yes.
That's it. You pick one and then you work at that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They say that it takes 6 weeks to build a habit, but I think the science around that is starting to reveal that it takes a little bit longer than that. But yeah, you're doing it for 6 weeks, 12 weeks. And then once you really feel like that is become easier, then we can add another one.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us fail at our goals because we go from 0 to 100 and we don't make
Yeah.
it scalable or sustainable. You have your whole life to figure it out, your whole life, right? Like there is no one is going to get on your back at the end of 2026 and be like, dang, right? So this year, if you're just working on honesty or community, that's what you do for a year. So I think that it can be really overwhelming when we're even when we're spring cleaning our homes physically, right? To
Oh,
take it's time. I can tell. I wish you could see my desk.
where
It's
does all this stuff come from
I
in
don't
my
know.
and every time? Like, why?
I
Why?
don't know. I don't know. Yep. That is the question. But yeah, so we take one room at a time. That's it. And we just do that. One section
Mhm.
at a time. I
One
just
drawer.
yes, there's like nothing wrong with that. Like
Mhm.
I've this weekend I'm gonna set a timer for literally 15 minutes and I'm gonna clean my office. And whatever doesn't get done after that 15 minutes,
Oh well.
para la semana que viene. Um, and so living according to your values works the same way.
Yep. Yep.
Well, that wraps up this episode. We're so thankful that you're here. We're so glad that you're tuning in. If you guys have like ideas for topics or things you want to hear about, please feel free to Instagram us or leave a comment and we can definitely dive in. We are still working on our calendar for this year, so there are some gaps. If you're needing mental health services, just know that we're still here. And actually, I have space right now on my
Nice.
calendar. Yep. And Elizabeth has a space, and some of our other clinicians do too. You can check us out at www.canentacenter.com. Or if you're interested in the work that we're doing for the foundation, you can check us out at canentafoundation.org. And just to put this in your ear, is that our foundation is planning our summit. It's just going to be in May. So that will be opening really soon. So be on the lookout for that. But until next time, thanks, guys.